The Pacific View restaurant sat on a cliff overlooking the ocean, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a sunset view that tourists paid premium prices to photograph. Dad's 67th birthday dinner occupied the entire private dining room. 40 family members gathered around an elegantly set table, celebrating another year of Richard Whitmore's life with expensive wine and carefully prepared seafood. I sat near the end of the table in jeans and a simple sweater, drinking water while everyone else worked through their second bottle of wine. My older brother Marcus held court in the center directly across from Dad, wearing a suit that probably cost $3,000. His wife Vanessa was beside him in Prada, laughing at something my aunt said. My younger sister Lauren sat to Dad's right in designer everything, her tech executive husband Nathan beside her, both of them radiating success. Mom presided over the table from her position next to Dad, elegant in her pearls and champagne silk blouse, surveying her family with satisfaction. And then there was me, Jade Whitmore, the daughter who'd never quite measured up. "Jade, dear," my Aunt Christine called down the table, her voice carrying over the ambient conversation. "I heard you're still house-sitting for that family in the suburbs. How much longer are you doing that?" "I'm not house-sitting," I said calmly. "I live there. Living in someone else's house while they're away," she clarified. "Same thing, isn't it? House-sitting." "It's my house," I said. "I own it." "You rent it," Marcus corrected loudly, ensuring everyone heard. "Let's be accurate, Jade. You rent a room in a house. There's a difference between that and actually owning property." "I own the house," I repeated, but no one was listening. "Jade's always been a bit confused about things like that," Vanessa said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Remember when she said she worked in real estate? We all thought she was an agent. Turns out she's a receptionist at a property management company." "Administrative assistant," I corrected quietly. "Same thing," Marcus said, waving his hand dismissively. "Point is, she's 31 and still hasn't figured out her life. No real career, no property, probably drowning in student debt from that business degree she never uses." "Now, Marcus," Mom said, but her tone suggested she agreed more than she disapproved. "Your sister is doing her best." "Is she though?" Lauren joined in, her venture capitalist husband nodding along. "Jade's been doing her best for 10 years. At some point, you have to admit that her best just isn't very good." The table laughed. Polite, knowing laughter that acknowledged they were being mean but felt justified in it. "She can't even afford her own apartment," Marcus continued, warming to his theme and his audience. "She's 31 years old and lives in a rented room. Most people her age own property, have careers, are building something. Jade's just existing." "That's not entirely fair," Dad said, but the defense was half-hearted. "Jade has a job. She's independent. She doesn't ask us for money. Because she's too proud," Aunt Christine said. "But we all know she's barely scraping by. That house she rents a room in? I drove past it once. It's in a decent neighborhood, but clearly she can only afford the smallest room. Probably shares a bathroom with 3 other people." "4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms," I said. "And I live alone." "You wish," Marcus laughed. "Jade, stop trying to save face. We all know you're struggling. There's no shame in it. Some people just aren't cut out for success. Some people make different choices," I said. "Different choices," Lauren repeated mockingly. "Is that what we're calling failure now? Different choices?" Nathan, her husband, leaned forward. "Look, Jade, I run a tech company. I hire hundreds of people. I can tell you from experience, there are people who succeed and people who make excuses. You've been making excuses for a decade." "I haven't made any excuses," I said calmly. "I've just been working." "Working as a receptionist," Vanessa said.
Morning.
"Let's be honest about what that means. You answer phones. You file papers. It's not exactly building a career." "It pays the bills," I said. "Does it though?" Marcus challenged. "Because you're living in a rented room at 31. That suggests your bills aren't really being paid. That suggests you're one emergency away from moving back home." Dad cleared his throat. "Marcus, that's enough. Though, Jade, sweetheart, you know your mother and I worry about you. If you need help, if you need to move back home until you get on your feet, we're here for you." The offer was meant kindly, but it landed like an insult. They all saw me as someone who needed rescuing. Someone who'd failed at independent living and needed to crawl back to her parents' house. "I appreciate that," I said. But I'm fine where I am. In your rented room, Marcus said. Sharing a house with strangers. Very fine indeed. Actually, Lauren added, I'm surprised she can even afford rent in that neighborhood. Those houses aren't cheap. She must be paying at least $1,500 a month just for a room. More like $2,000, Aunt Christine said. That's a nice area. Wherever she's living, the homeowner is making good money off her. Which is exactly the problem, Marcus said, pointing his fork at me. Jade's throwing away $2,000 a month on rent instead of building equity. Meanwhile, Vanessa and I own our penthouse. Lauren and Nathan own their condo. Even our younger cousins are buying property. And Jade's still renting rooms like a college student. Some of us aren't handed down payments by our parents, I said quietly. The table went silent for a beat. We earned our down payment, Marcus said coldly. Vanessa and I both have excellent careers. We saved. We planned. We didn't just drift through life hoping things would work out. Your down payment came from Dad, I said. He gave you $300,000 for the penthouse. As an early inheritance, Dad said quickly. Which you'll receive too when the time comes. Will I asked. Or will you decide I'm too irresponsible to handle money and put it in a trust with conditions? The accuracy of that prediction showed on their faces. We're just trying to protect you, Mom said. You've never shown much financial sense, dear. It would be irresponsible of us to hand you a large sum without safeguards. Unlike Marcus, I said, who got $300,000 with no strings attached. Marcus has proven himself, Dad said. He's a senior executive at a Fortune 500 company. He knows how to manage money. He manages other people's money, I corrected, as an investment analyst, which is different from managing his own finances. Are you actually criticizing me? Marcus's voice rose. You who can't even afford an apartment. You're going to judge my career. I'm not judging, I said. I'm just pointing out that we've all made different choices. Yes, Vanessa agreed. Marcus chose success. You chose failure. Very different choices. I reached into my bag. It was a worn leather satchel I'd carried for years, the kind that screamed, I shop at discount stores, to people like my family. I pulled out a manila envelope. Actually, Marcus, I said, my voice still calm, I need to discuss something with you. Something time-sensitive. Tao? He asked. At Dad's birthday dinner? Yes now, I said. Since you brought up living situations. I opened the envelope and pulled out a legal document. Then I slid it down the table toward him. This is your eviction notice, I said clearly, ensuring everyone could hear. You have 30 days to vacate the penthouse you're currently living in. The property owner, that's me, is terminating your lease. The table went completely silent. Marcus grabbed the document, his earlier smugness evaporating as he read. His face went from confident to confused to pale in about 10 seconds. This is... He started then stopped. This can't be real. It's very real, I said. Filed with the county this morning. You'll receive official notice from my attorney by the end of the week. But I thought I'd give you the courtesy of a personal heads-up. The property owner, he read from the document. Whitmore Property Holdings, LC. Represented by you. I own Whitmore Property Holdings, I confirmed. Have for 6 years. We own 47 buildings across the city, including the Riverside Towers where your penthouse is located. 47 buildings, Vanessa repeated faintly. Actually 48 as of last month, I corrected. We just closed on the Morrison complex. But 47 at the time I drafted your eviction notice. Dad had gone pale. Jade, what is this? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that Marcus has been living in a penthouse I own for 3 years, I said. Paying $3,500 a month in rent to Whitmore Property Holdings. Which is my company. Which makes me his landlord. You're not a landlord, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. You're a receptionist. I'm the receptionist at Sterling Property Management, I said. Which is the management company I hired to handle day-to-day operations for my buildings. I own Sterling Property Management too, by the way. But I wanted to stay connected to the ground-level work, so I took a position as their front desk administrator. I answer phones, file paperwork, and handle tenant inquiries. For my own properties. This is insane, Lauren said. You own 48 buildings? That's impossible. 48 buildings with a combined value of approximately $270 million, I said. Though valuations fluctuate. The market's been good lately, so it might be closer to $300 million now. $300 million, Nathan breathed. In property holdings, yes, I confirmed. Started 6 years ago with money from grandmother Whitmore's estate. The $200,000 she left me that everyone said I'd waste. I bought my first building with that as a down payment. A small apartment complex in an emerging neighborhood. Fixed it up, raised the rents reasonably, used the cash flow to buy the next property. Then the next. Built up the portfolio systematically. 6 years ago, Mom whispered. You've been a real estate mogul for 6 years and never told us? I tried to tell you, I said. 6 years ago I said I was starting a property investment business. Remember what happened? Silence. You all laughed, I continued. Dad said I'd lose grandmother's money within a year. Marcus said I was being typically naive about business. Lauren suggested I just put the money in a mutual fund and get a real job. So I stopped trying to explain. I just built the business instead. The house you live in, Aunt Christine said slowly. The one we thought you rented a room in. I own it, I said. Free and clear. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house on 2 acres. I bought it 3 years ago for cash. I live there alone because I prefer space and privacy. The neighbors you all assumed I was renting from? They're actually my tenants in the smaller properties I own on that street. You own multiple properties on one street? Uncle David spoke up from the end of the table. I own 7 houses on that street, I said. Plus the small commercial building on the corner that houses a coffee shop and a bookstore. It's a good investment. Walkable neighborhood, strong community, steady rental income. Rental income, Dad repeated numbly. Jade, how much rental income are we talking about? From all 48 properties? Approximately $600,000 monthly. About $7.2 million annually. After expenses, debt service and taxes, I clear around $4 million a year in profit. $4 million, Marcus said, and his voice had gone hoarse. Which I reinvest in acquiring more properties, I said. I live on about $80,000 a year. The salary I pay myself as administrator at Sterling Property Management. Everything else goes back into the business. You live on $80,000 when you make $4 million, Vanessa said slowly. That's why. Because I don't need more, I said simply. $80,000 covers my expenses comfortably. I don't care about designer clothes or luxury cars or expensive vacations. I care about building a sustainable business and creating quality housing for working families. Quality housing, Marcus said, looking at the eviction notice in his hand. If you care so much about quality housing, why are you evicting me? Because you've violated your lease agreement multiple times, I said calmly. You've had 17 noise complaints from other tenants. You've damaged common areas. You've been consistently late with rent, 5 times in the last year alone. And most recently, you used your penthouse to host a party that caused over $15,000 in damage to the building's rooftop deck. His face went red. That was an accident. People got rowdy. You invited 100 people to a private rooftop in a building with a strict guest policy, I said. The damage included broken glass embedded in the artificial turf, destroyed furniture and graffiti on the walls. My management company sent you 3 written warnings. You ignored them all. Because I didn't think they were serious, he protested. It's just a management company. I figured I'd eventually talk to the actual owner and work something out. You are talking to the actual owner, I said. And I'm working it out by evicting you. You've been a problem tenant, Marcus. I've given you multiple chances to improve your behavior. You haven't. So now you have 30 days to find a new place. You can't just kick me out, he said, but he sounded uncertain now. I can and I am, I said. The eviction is legal and properly filed. You violated your lease. You caused property damage. You disturbed other tenants. All grounds for eviction under state law and the terms of your rental agreement. But I'm your brother, he said as if that changed anything. Which is why I'm giving you personal notice instead of just having my attorney handle it, I said. But being family doesn't give you the right to be a bad tenant. Other people live in that building, Marcus. People who pay their rent on time, follow the rules and treat the property with respect. You don't get to make their lives miserable just because you're my brother. This is petty, Vanessa said. You're evicting your own brother over some party damage and noise complaints? That's vindictive. What's vindictive is spending 3 years mocking me for being poor while living in my building and paying me rent, I said. What's petty is making fun of your landlord's financial situation at family dinners without realizing who you're actually talking about. We didn't know, Marcus said weakly. You didn't ask, I corrected. You assumed. You saw me working as a receptionist and decided I was a failure. You saw me living simply and decided I was poor. You never once asked about my actual life or my actual business. You just created a narrative that made you feel superior and stuck with it. The $300,000 Dad gave you for your down payment, I continued, looking at Marcus. The penthouse you've been living in costs $4.2 million. You put down 7%, $300,000 from Dad, and financed the rest. Your mortgage payment is around $12,000 a month. Plus your $3,500 in rent to me. You're spending over $15,000 a month on housing. So, he asked defensively. So you're house poor, I said. You make a good salary. Probably $250,000 a year, but between your mortgage, your rent, and your lifestyle expenses, you're barely breaking even. That's why you've been late with rent. That's why you couldn't afford to properly repair the damage from your party. You're living beyond your means to maintain an image. His silence confirmed it. Meanwhile, I continued, I own my house outright. No mortgage. No rent. Property taxes and utilities are my only housing costs. I have zero debt and millions in assets. But you've spent 3 years calling me a failure because I wear cheap clothes and drive an older car. I didn't know, he said again. You could have known, I said. If you'd ever bothered to ask. But you preferred your narrative. It was easier. Made you feel better about yourself. Lauren found her voice. Jade, I don't even know what to say. You've been secretly rich this entire time. I haven't been secretly anything, I said. I've been openly running a property business. You all just never paid attention. Because you work as a receptionist, she said. That doesn't exactly scream real estate mogul. It does if you're paying attention, I said. I've mentioned the property business dozens of times at family dinners. I've talked about buildings I'm renovating, tenants I'm working with, neighborhood development projects. Everyone just tuned it out because it didn't fit the narrative you'd created about me. We thought you were talking about your job at the property management company, Mom said weakly. I was talking about my company, I corrected. The property management company I own. The properties I own. The business I built. But no one listened. Dad had been silent through most of this, but now he spoke. Jade, you let me offer you money. You let me suggest you move back home. While you were worth. He trailed off. While my net worth was approximately $75 million in property equity, I finished. Yes. Because I wanted to see if you'd figure it out. If anyone would actually look at my life instead of assuming. 75 million, he repeated. That's equity, I clarified. Actual net worth after debts is closer to 58 million. But the properties generate consistent cash flow, and the portfolio grows annually. I'll probably cross $100 million in net worth within 3 years. $100 million, Aunt Christine said faintly. In today's dollars, I said. Though inflation will affect that. Marcus was staring at the eviction notice, his earlier smugness completely evaporated. Where am I supposed to go? You're giving me 30 days. That's not enough time to find a place. It's the standard notice period required by law, I said. And Marcus, you can afford to move. You make good money. You just need to find housing that fits your actual budget instead of the image you're trying to project. The penthouse is perfect for us, Vanessa protested. We've built a life there. You've built debt there, I corrected. And you've made life miserable for other tenants. I have families with young children complaining about noise at 2 a.m. I have elderly residents who can't use the rooftop because you've made it your personal party space. You're not good tenants, and I'm not willing to let you continue disrupting other people's lives. But we're family, Marcus said desperately. Which is why I'm having this conversation with you instead of just having security escort you out, I said. But family doesn't mean you get to treat my property or my other tenants badly. Find a new place. One that fits your actual budget. Live within your means. And maybe learn that judging people by their clothes and their cars is a terrible way to understand their actual financial situation. I can't believe this, he said, still staring at the papers. Believe it, I said. You have 30 days. Use them wisely. I turned to my father. Dad, happy birthday. I'm sorry to bring business into your celebration, but Marcus brought up housing, so it seemed like the right time to address his situation. His situation that you created, Dad said, but his voice lacked accusation. He sounded more confused than angry. His situation that he created by being a problem tenant, I corrected. If he'd paid rent on time, followed the rules, and treated the property respectfully, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You really own 48 buildings, Mom said, like she was still trying to process it. 48 buildings, yes, I confirmed. Plus I'm under contract for 3 more. Should close next month, which will bring the portfolio to 51 properties. Why didn't you tell us? Lauren asked. Why let us think you were struggling? Because you never asked, I said for what felt like the 100th time. And because watching you all judge me while I was actually succeeding was educational. It taught me exactly how much you all valued appearances over reality. How much you measured worth by visible displays of wealth rather than actual achievement. That's not fair, Nathan said. Isn't it? I asked. Marcus has been living in my building for 3 years. Paying me rent. Never once did he wonder who owned the property. Never once did he look at the ownership records, which are public information. He just assumed some faceless corporation owned it and never thought to check. Why would I check? Marcus asked. Because you're supposed to be a financial analyst, I said. Understanding who owns assets is literally your job. But you were too busy feeling superior to me to actually look at the facts. The table had gone quiet, everyone processing this complete reversal of everything they'd believed about me. The house parties you threw, I continued, looking at Marcus. The ones you posted on social media. Every time I saw those posts, I knew exactly what damage you were causing. My property manager sent me photos of the aftermath. Broken railings, damaged walls, destroyed furniture. I paid for all of it out of the building's maintenance budget, which comes from all the tenants' rent, not just yours. You cost other people money with your carelessness. I didn't know, he said. You didn't care, I corrected. That's different. You didn't care who owned the building or who had to clean up after your parties or who had to listen to your noise at 2 a.m. You just assumed you could do whatever you wanted because you're Marcus Whitmore, senior executive, too important to follow rules. This isn't fair, Vanessa said, but her voice had lost its edge. What's not fair is having 17 different families complain about your behavior and having my property manager spend countless hours trying to resolve issues you created, I said. What's not fair is other tenants threatening to move out because you've made their living situation intolerable. You're not the victims here. The people you've been disturbing are the victims. Where are we supposed to find a place in 30 days? Marcus asked again. You could try the Sterling Arms building on 5th Street, I suggested. That's another property I own. It has several available units. 2-bedroom apartments rent for $2,800 a month. Much more within your budget than a $4,200 penthouse. You want us to downsize? Vanessa asked, horrified. I want you to live within your means, I said. Stop trying to project an image you can't afford. Find a place that fits your actual financial situation. And maybe learn that bigger isn't always better. Dad found his voice again. Jade, I need to apologize. 4 years of not seeing you. For assuming you were struggling. For offering to let you move home when you were actually incredibly successful. Apology noted, I said. But Dad, the problem isn't just that you didn't know about my business. The problem is that you never asked. In 6 years of running a multi-million-dollar property business, you never once showed genuine interest in my work. You asked polite questions and then zoned out when I answered. You were so convinced of your narrative about me that you couldn't see reality. I want to see reality now, he said. I want to understand your business. Really understand it. Hey, I said. Come visit my office. See the properties. Meet my team. Learn what I actually do instead of what you assumed I did. But that conversation happens later. Right now this is your birthday dinner. Let's try to finish it without more drama. I think the drama ship has sailed, Lauren said dryly. You just evicted our brother. I evicted a problem tenant who happens to be our brother, I corrected. There's a difference. The rest of the dinner was awkward as expected. People asked questions about my business, about the properties, about how I'd hidden this for so long. I answered patiently, explaining that I hadn't hidden anything. I'd just stopped trying to convince people to pay attention. Marcus and Vanessa left early, the eviction notice clutched in Marcus's hand. He tried to argue several more times, but I'd remained firm. 30 days. Find a new place. No extensions, no exceptions. As I was leaving, Dad pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you," he said. "I should have said that years ago. You built something remarkable." "Thank you," I said. "But Dad, I don't need you to be proud of me. I need you to actually see me. To know me. To understand that success doesn't always look like what you expect it to look like." "I'm learning that," he said. "Better late than never?" "We'll see," I said. "Actions matter more than words. Show me you're actually interested in my life instead of just impressed by my net worth." "I will," he promised. I drove home in my 7-year-old Honda, reliable, paid off, perfect for my needs, to my 4-bedroom house that I owned outright. Tomorrow I'd deal with the fallout from the dinner. Tonight I just wanted to sit in my home office and review the contracts for the 3 new properties I was purchasing. Because that's what actually mattered. Not my family's belated recognition. Not Marcus's eviction drama. Not the shock on their faces when they realized they'd been completely wrong about me. What mattered was the business. The properties. The families I housed. The sustainable, profitable enterprise I'd built from a $200,000 inheritance and 6 years of hard work. Everything else was just noise.